Robert Pattinson 最近擺脱吸血僵屍形象，喺新片飾演暗黑系嘅超級英雄。雖然上映前惹嚟唔少質疑嘅聲音，但係北美上映首個星期就創下1.28億美元票房嘅亮麗成績。呢日我哋主播黃振全同兩位主角以及導演 Matt Reeves 做咗個越洋專訪。過往呢個系列嘅漫畫多次被改編搬上銀幕，為咗拍出不一樣嘅版本，導演都花咗唔少心思啊。
Was it an interesting and challenging mission for you to create a new version of Batman?
Oh my God, so much so. I mean, the very task itself is so daunting, and when you begin it, you think, oh my gosh, is this a mountain that I should climb? Because there have been a lot of great Batman movies, and not only that, but people love Batman, so they have their own version of who he should be, and so that's a very scary challenge. But for me, I've loved the character since I was a kid. Adam West, 1966, was my Batman when I was a kid, and of course I've loved all the movies, and I just thought, okay, to me, the reason that I was so drawn to doing the movie is that the character provides a very sort of unique opportunity, because he has this mythic quality, but he's a very human character. He is tortured by this the psychology of what has happened to him since what happened to him when he was a kid. He's driven to what he's doing. He's kind of really only doing it. It's very existential. He's doing it to make sense of his life. So on the one hand, a superhero does something to save the city. He's really, in a way, trying to save his parents night after night, but he never will be able to. And that kind of drive, I think, really drives you to connect to him. He's relatable. You can feel for him, and you can admire him, and you can aspire to his bravery. And so all of that was very exciting, but of course it was challenging. And I think by trying to do it in a way where we wouldn't do an origin tale, where we wouldn't see any of that stuff that we'd seen done really brilliantly before, but instead would see a younger, imperfect Batman, that was what I tried to do, to allow you to see the world's greatest detective as you'd never seen him before.
And how did the pandemic affect the whole shooting experience, actually?
It affected it profoundly. I mean, we were about a quarter of the way into shooting, and we, like the rest of the world, shut down, and it was a very strange moment. We didn't know if we'd ever return to the movie. I'd spent, by that time, a number of years writing and preparing to make the movie. We'd only a quarter of the way done. I didn't know if we'd ever be able to come back to it, so it was very strange. But I stayed with my family in London, hoping that we could find a way to come back, and we did. And then we started shooting, before vaccines or anything, during the pandemic, being really careful. And to be honest, it was a gift to have Batman during the pandemic, because it gave us all something to focus on and believe in, and in a way, it gave us a mission to focus on while the world was going through such turmoil, and we're really grateful for it.
And how do you comment on Robert Pattinson's jawline as Batman?
He's got a great jawline. But more than anything, he's a great actor. I mean, what's so interesting is that I was drawn to him and had nothing to do with him looking like Batman, which of course he does. He's an incredible actor. He just has such depth, and he's truly a chameleon, and he really can transform into he goes in a very off-center way. He doesn't play anything in an obvious direction. He's always coming from something off-center. He's always looking for what he would describe as the weirdness in the character. And so in that way, he's looking for that part of that character that's imperfect, the human foibles, the part of him that isn't sort of clean, the very messiness of him. And that, to me, is why he's a great Batman, much more than his jawline, but he does have a great jawline.
Robert Pattinson 版嘅超級英雄一直未被睇好，所以喺電影上映時，佢就揚言話如果票房唔好就轉行去拍 AV。不過而家新戲反應咁好，睇嚟冇機會啦。呢啲都歸功於 Robert 嘅用心，連把聲佢都有特登訓練啊。
And a deep voice is one of the key traits of Batman. Actually, how did you find your unique deep Batman voice?
It's tough. But when I get excited, my voice gets higher and higher and higher. So we're generally when you're trying to threaten people, my natural instinct is to be like, ah! And to try and stay in the lower register, it requires a lot of practice. Yeah, eventually, and it kind of goes away as well. I guess your larynx strengthens after a while, and then if you start speaking in your normal register, it starts to gradually rise up again.
Do you still remember how to do it now?
No, I literally tried to do it the other day, and it's impossible. Nothing comes out. It's just
And wasn't it you tried all previous Batman outfits before the shooting, and how was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically tried all of them except for the Adam West. Which I don't think they have the Adam West. There's a section of the Warner Brothers costume department which is purely looks after the superhero outfits, and they're kept in this very secret area. And trying on the older suits, no one had worn them since the movie. So like I was looking at Michael Keaton's suit and George Clooney's, and they still, the last time they were worn was when they're shooting those movies, and it's amazing to be around it.
Okay, so was it super hard to fight in the Batsuit?
Day one, you feel very, very strong and and it feels like it's really helping you out. And then on day 3, you're like, once you've been in the rain machine, I mean, it's kind of, you're 60 pounds heavier. I mean, it's definitely, you feel like you're moving extremely slowly after a while. But you definitely need to do a little bit of training beforehand to just to be able to wear the suit.
Is that a relief? You don't have to play the death scene of Bruce Wayne's parents?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the Batman fans are kind of like, we don't need to see that again. But like, it's funny. There's this kind of, it's such a major part of his characterization of it. It kind of, it's everything in Bruce is from that. He's never gotten over it. And it's funny. We don't have that explicitly told in the movie, but I feel like throughout the entire story, it's kind of playing. It's playing on Bruce's face, and it's in every single relationship. It permeates every single aspect of his life. So it is kind of there. I saw the movie for the first time a few days ago, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of it. I think Matt Reeves is just a very, very special filmmaker, and he's really at the peak of his powers, and I think the movie's kind of amazing.
而片中性感又型格嘅貓女就由 Zoe Kravitz 飾演。為咗呢一套性感嘅貓女戲服，就算拍咗8個鐘 ，Zoe 仍然堅持每日拍攝完都要去做3個鐘嘅健身，希望唔靠修圖呈現最佳效果啊
！For how long you have been a fan of Batman? Was it required to finish all the comics and movies before shooting?
I've been a fan since I was a kid. I wasn't a huge comic book person, but I always loved the character and the world of Gotham and saw all the movies growing up. I loved, Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton and all of that. And when we started working on the movie, I called up Matt, our director, and asked him, okay, which comics should I read? Should I read all of them? And he pointed me towards Year One, which is a fantastic comic. And I was really, I was torn between reading all the comics or focusing on one, because it can be very overwhelming when you're playing these characters, when there's so much detail and there's so many different versions of the character, where my fear was that it would become overwhelming and kind of like I want to do everything all at once. So I really decided to stick with the one comic that Matt told me to read.
And did you have to study cats and lions in order to get familiar with the movements of Catwoman?
I didn't have to, but I did choose to. And
really,
yeah, me and Rob Alonzo, the stunt coordinator, we watched a lot of videos of cat fights and lions fighting and all of that, and I was just, I was really fascinated with the way that felines move, and finding ways to incorporate that into the character was really fun.
So did you have to act with real cats on set?
I did. My character has a lot of cats, and so I would spend time with them just to try and like get to know them, so they felt comfortable around me. But cats are cats. I don't know if they really cared one way or another.
And what is your most memorable scene with Robert?
There's a few. I mean, the fight that we have at the beginning at the mayor's mansion is great, and that was, I think, the first thing we shot together, so I think that has a very special place in my heart. And the scene on the roof where we kind of, I tell him about my past and all of that. I love that scene. I think it's just heartful and romantic, and you really get a sense of the connection between the two of us.
And wasn't it you tried so hard not to be distracted by Robert's drop of sweat in the mayor's mansion scene?
Oh, his sweat?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. There's a moment where I'm under him on a table, and so his face is right above my face, and the cowl's very, very warm, and the room was warm, and I just remember seeing the one bead of sweat, and it would just be hanging at the end of his nose, and I would just hope that they were gonna call cut before it fell into my mouth, basically.